My name is Sarah Webb, and welcome to my presentation on designing and teaching a curriculum. September 11th means a very different thing to the people of South America. It was what could be described as an offhand comment, made in the middle of a conversation, not meant to have any lasting impact. But Senora Lund's words intrigued me. What did she mean? What happened in South America? This moment, ever so brief, inspired the research that would change the way I viewed the United States of America forever. For my senior year independent study, I chose to research American foreign policy and the country's role in both the 1953 Iranian coup and the 1973 Chilean coup. My thesis states, following the conclusion of World War II, American foreign policy took a significant turn from the previously upheld philosophy of isolationism. This change led to an increased amount of American involvement in foreign countries. There have been clear benefits to America's newfound internationalism. However, the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat and the 1973 Chilean coup d'etat were cases in which American involvement were detrimental to the foreign nation. My research touched on subjects such as resource nationalization, communism, and propaganda. The 1953 Iranian coup was the overthrow of the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in favor of strengthening the monarchical rule of the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The coup was primarily orchestrated by the United States with assistance from the United Kingdom. The 1973 Chilean coup was the removal of democratically elected President Salvador Allende and the installment of a military junta. For many years before the coup, the United States had meddled in Chilean politics. Measures taken by the United States in Chile included influencing several elections, promoting economic strain, and the creation of failed plans to remove President Allende from office. The military junta that ruled after the coup was notoriously brutal and committed countless human rights violations. For my project, I chose to design a curriculum based upon the information in my paper and teach 4 classes to the Renaissance School faculty. When I began the research for my project, I knew that finding good and reliable sources would be challenging. There were thousands of documents, sites, and templates online, so I made the choice to prioritize the listings with a .edu URL. Universities and trusted teaching institutions guided me through this process. One resource that proved invaluable to me was a Renaissance School faculty. Around me were individuals dedicated to doing exactly what I was going to attempt, teach. I also thought about my favorite classes and teachers. What made their classes so fun, so interesting? How did they keep me engaged? I found myself frequently thinking back to the instructors that made me love learning. How did they do it? To begin to understand the many components of a curriculum and what goes into the planning necessary to teach an interesting, engaging, and fun class, I read and took notes from literature about the development of a curriculum. Although I found great information online, my most valuable source was given to me by Ms. Johnson. The instructor manual from the Summer Enrichment Program at the University of Virginia provided me with information I wouldn't have thought relevant. The manual outlined certain goals that a curriculum should strive to achieve. These goals included exposure to new material, promoted thought, understanding of the significance of the subject, and a communal learning experience. The manual also described a quality curriculum, which concentrates on major ideas, issues, themes, problems, concepts, and principles rather than facts. The larger picture helps students make abstract connections across disciplines and gives them more opportunities to hang the new knowledge on existing ideas. The Summer Enrichment Program manual taught me that my class needed to be more than me relaying information. My class needed to inspire deeper thought, entice debate, and entrap those in attendance. From my research, I concluded that creating a syllabus, course outline, lesson plans, and worksheets would help me shape my curriculum. The first document for my class that I created was the syllabus. From Florida State University, I found an in-depth guide on the creation of syllabi that allowed me to pick and choose what I wanted to include in my own. The title of the course, Examinations of American Foreign Policy, was followed by the instructor information, which was simply my name and email. Next was the course description. I read several reports on how to create an enticing course description and what I came up with was, this course will be an in-depth analysis of the circumstances which resulted in the 1953 Iranian coup and the 1973 Chilean coup. We will be discussing foreign policy, communism, resource nationalization, and the reaches of the United States government. You will end this course having learned history that the United States wishes to keep hidden. The next section was general information. Included in this were the meeting dates and times, expectations and goals, and materials. The final point I put on the syllabus was a question and an answer. Why should I take this course? To put it simply, to understand that the United States is responsible for much more than it will ever admit to. My next step was developing the course outline and each lesson plan. The course outline roughly broke down what would be covered in each class, highlighting main points and important information. However, I found that I rarely referenced the document and it did not benefit me in any way. Lesson plans detail the structure and format for a single lesson. I relied heavily on my lesson plans during the classes because the information I was teaching is full of detailed facts and specific numbers. For each class, I created a worksheet with 4 questions that would allow me to check and make sure that I had covered the key points of that day's lesson. Once I had created all the documents for my class, I switched gears and began to research teaching methods. I had originally planned for all of my classes to follow what is considered the traditional style of teaching, teacher-centric lectures that prioritize the communication of facts and information. However, I found that in my research, a discussion-style approach could also be used. Sometimes referred to as the modern teaching method, discussions regarding the subject material have proved to be more engaging and thought-provoking. Something else I had to consider when teaching are the different learning styles. A learning style is an individual's unique approach to learning based on strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. Although many learning styles have been identified, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic are considered the main methods. Visual learning is a style in which a learner utilizes graphs, charts, maps, and diagrams. Visual learners can easily visualize objects, plans, and outcomes in their mind. The whiteboard is the best friend for someone who learns this way. Auditory learning is a learning style in which the person learns through listening. An auditory learner depends on speaking and hearing as the main way of learning. Those who learn this way must be able to hear what is being said in order to understand and may have to have difficulty with instructions that are drawn or written. Kinesthetic learning is a learning style in which learning takes place by the student carrying out physical activities rather than listening to a lecture or watching demonstrations. People with a preference for this learning are commonly known as doers. For my interview, I contacted my aunt, Dr. Julie Meltzer. She is the Director of Curriculum, Assessment, and Instruction for the Mount Desert Island Regional School System. She is also the President of the Maine Curriculum Leaders Association, and she supervises K-12 curriculum, professional learning, instructional leadership, and certification. Via email, we discussed her best tips for teaching, the most challenging aspects of her job, and what to do to make a lesson interesting. She taught me valuable lessons, such as the importance of accommodating different learning styles and the necessity of student reflection. My first class did not go as well as I had hoped. I found that my lesson plan was not extensive enough, and the class ended 20 minutes before I had intended it to. My second class was more successful. I had decided to prompt a discussion about nationalization that would have gone on if I hadn't have stopped it. My third class was my favorite. I felt that the class was captivated and intrigued by the material I covered. For my final class, I wanted to prompt a discussion about the role of communism in America. I faced a plethora of problems while working on my project. Not only did I come down with bronchitis for the second time in 6 months, but I procrastinated. I also struggled to decide which information I would talk about in my classes. These topics are expansive and intriguing. Designing and teaching a curriculum taught me many things. Most importantly, I gained a new level of respect for my teachers and the work they do. To teach classes that are fun, informative, and well-organized requires a substantial amount of planning that I was not expecting. I've learned a lot while working on this project. I am excited to take these lessons with me into the next chapter of my life. Thank you. I can now take any questions. Mom.
When you taught the different classes, could you sense that you were connecting differently with the students as you tried different approaches, like some were more responsive to the lecture, or obviously you had a high-quality student body.
That's true, yes. As I was teaching teachers rather than young students, I found that they were, of course, more engaged in the material and weren't distracted by things that would normally distract a teenager. But I definitely felt as though a discussion was more, they paid more attention to a discussion because they had to take into account what everybody else was saying and think about and adjust their opinion and what they were going to say to that. Matthias?
Did you pick up any techniques for when you had these productive debates and people would start to fall down a rabbit hole? Did you pick up any techniques that you felt helped pull people out of a rabbit hole without necessarily shutting down debate? Or did you kind of just let them go until they ran out of things to say?
Well, it's really important to avoid rabbit holes in discussions, but I found that just having a question that ties it back to the main topic. So when we were talking about nationalization, we got into a rabbit hole about eminent domain, and so we had to tie that back to nationalization again and nationalization of American resources. And Lucy.
Can you elaborate on what sort of things you discussed during your interview, or what you learned from that?
So for my aunt, we talked about mainly what her experience with designing curriculums and what she has found to be what entices and keeps the students the most engaged. And so she would have a method, and so she would have a hook at the beginning of a lesson, and then she would explain what they were going to be learning about. And then they would have an activity relating to the lesson, and then at the end, she would ask the student to put that lesson back into their own words and kind of reformat it to their understanding. So that was really important because it kind of shaped the way that it's a layout for a class. Nellie.
Did you learn anything you didn't know about teaching?
I definitely thought it was going to be more natural than it was. I definitely struggled with kind of getting into the flow and the rhythm of it. But when I talked to Ms. Johnson about it, she said it takes teachers a good few years to kind of find their natural step and their natural pace. So that was pretty comforting. But I definitely now know that if I were ever to do something like this again, I would have to be more prepared and have extra materials rather than just what I thought was enough. Okay, thank you guys.